Okay, this is your 8-4.1 notes. So this is your inverse trig. So what this means is that you are given at least two sides of your triangle and you want to find an angle. Okay, so it says on here you can use a calculator and the sine, cosine, or tangent to find the measure of the angle called the inverse of the trig ratio. So example number 1. Use a calculator to find the measure of angle R and angle T to the nearest tenth. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and start with angle R. So here is angle R, okay? Looking at angle R. You're looking at angle R. This would be your adjacent, and this 34, that's across from the right angle, so that's our hypotenuse. So if you need to, you can write down SOHCAHTOA, and you want to look and see which one of these we want to use. So you have adjacent and you also have hypotenuse, so that's the A and H. The one that has that is cosine. So we're going to go ahead and use cosine. So cosine of this angle R is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, adjacent is 29 and the hypotenuse is 34. So what we're going to type in the calculator is you're going to type in cosine, and it's going to have this little -1 on there. That means inverse. So if you look where your sine, cosine, tangent buttons are, to get the cosine with that -1 as your exponent, you hit second cosine. Make sure your calculator is in degrees, and you do that under the mode. So when you click on mode on your calculator, go down to the third row, go over to degree and hit enter. Your calculator is in degrees, okay? So after that, exit out of that and then hit second cosine. Type in 29 over 34. Make sure you have it in parentheses. And when you hit enter, you'll get that the measure of angle R is equal to, we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so that's 31.5 degrees. All right, and then the other one we need to find, other angle was angle T. Okay, so here, that 29 would be opposite. And again, you still have a hypotenuse. So you want to look at the ones that have an O and an H in it. So O and H, that would be our sine. So we're going to have the sine of angle, sorry, not R, it's T. That didn't want either one of those. Okay, sine of T is equal to, opposite is 29. Hypotenuse is 34. Okay, so you may be thinking we're going to get the same answer. Well, we're not, because we're not using cosine, we're going to use sine. So you have sine -1, so your inverse sine of 29 over 34. So in your calculator, you hit second sine, parentheses, 29 divided by 34, close your parentheses, hit enter, and you'll get the measure of angle T is equal to 58.5 degrees. Okay. Now we have 4 examples and then we're done. So it says use a calculator to find the measure of angle T to the nearest tenth. So we're only focusing on T. So for this one, I'm looking at angle T right in here. So what I have is this would be opposite, and 34 is going to be adjacent. So if you remember SOHCAHTOA, the one that has opposite and adjacent is the TOA, so that's going to be our tangent. So we're going to have tangent of angle T is equal to, opposite was 14 square roots of 3 over adjacent, which is 34. So in your calculator, you're going to type in tangent to -1, so inverse tangent, 14 square roots of 3 over 34. Okay, and when you do that, we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so when you type all that in, it should come out to 35.5 degrees. So make sure that you are practicing this on your calculator before you come to class. Okay, number 2. So number 2 again, we are looking for the measure of angle T. Okay, so what we have here, this piece would be opposite, and this piece across from the 90, that's our hypotenuse. So if you remember SOHCAHTOA, we want the one that's opposite in hypotenuse, so that would be our sine. So we have sine of T is equal to, opposite is 7 over my hypotenuse is 18, In your calculator, you hit inverse sine, 7 divided by 18, and that will give you the measure of angle T. So when you do this, the measure of angle T should come out to 22.9 degrees. Okay. Number 3. So for this one, again, we want to find the measure of angle T. So what we have here is we have adjacent, and this one is our hypotenuse. So SOHCAHTOA. You want the one that is adjacent in hypotenuse, so that would be your cosine. So cosine of t is equal to adjacent is 34, hypotenuse is 87. So the inverse of cosine of 34 over 87 will give you the measure of angle T. Again, if you're not getting the correct answers, make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Whenever you do this, you should get that the measure of angle T, when we round it, it's going to come out to 67 degrees. And again, you can always pause this, rewind it, all that stuff while you're typing in the calculator. All right, last one that we're going to do. So for this one, we'll do like a greenish color. Okay, for this one, again, we're finding for a measure of angle T. So here we have adjacent, and here this is our hypotenuse. So SOHCAHTOA. We want adjacent and hypotenuse, so that's our cosine. So cosine of t is equal to adjacent is 32, hypotenuse is 101. The inverse of cosine of 32 over 101 will give you the measure of angle T. So when you type that in and round to the nearest tenth, it should come out to 71.5 degrees. All right, and that is it for your whichever one these are, 8-4.1 notes.